One thing I've learned, if you don't hold their feet to the fire, everybody gets burned.
Hold on. Before you start waving around that freedom of speech thing, when you're in a crowded movie theater and you scream fire, you better be able to smell smoke. You come on this radio show and you start saying incandescent things like that, you better have more behind you, pal, than just your thumb. I've been listening to talk radio for years, and one thing I just can't stand is when the host has to, push his way on the people, beat the callers into his way of thinking, extending his ego, or when the callers call in and say something so outrageous and the host lets it go unchallenged. The sign you're on the road to truth is the lack of contradiction. You want to find truth, you just don't simply believe somebody because of their authority or their degree, or you listen to what they say, you test it against reality, and you hold their feet to the fire.
All right, we're back and we're live. Feet to the fire. I'm your host, James, out of Yanchek, the Black Knight of Talk Radio. Year 20, still going, still ticking. The world's still turning. My heart's still ticking. So, and there's a lot going on. But again, you know what I tend to do is not just follow the news and talk about it because there's a trillion people doing so. I could put my 2 cents in when I think it's worth 2 cents, maybe more. But I would like to talk more of a concept here as we're going through. Now, we're going through trying to find, reality. The word truth has gotten beat up a lot, and then there's the your truth is not my truth nonsense. So I like to use the term reality because there's just reality, and reality is true, and whatever is real is true, and I want to find what's real. If you find something that's fantasy or what you want or don't want, if fear and fantasy and desire is, two sides of the same unreal coin. And you want to align yourself with that reality so that your fear, if real, can lead to dealing with it, preparing for whatever you're afraid of, or changing the situation, etc. And if you're happy with the situation, you want to make sure it's real so that you don't, if something is really sturdy, you think it's really sturdy, you fall through it, then your belief in it is not relevant. I don't go along with. I understand that what you believe in is how you perceive the world and all that, but it does not mean that if you could just believe and make it real, I'm not in that camp. But what I do want to talk about is what will make things will color or pollute your vision in trying to find reality is your identity, what you identify with. I call identity pollution, because if you identify with a certain philosophy group, ideology, again, fear or desire, and it's not true or real in the real world, you are now just making yourself open to walk off that cliff not seeing it's there, or not preparing for something, or preparing for the wrong thing, or seeking. This happens a lot with people with drugs or casual sex and all that. They're trying to find joy or happiness or good, and these are false ways. I mean, properly put in perspective, those things can be helpful, but alone they can be misleading. So let me run over some things here. Identity politics is all over the place. It's of course, the reason why it's being used is those wielding that phrase and philosophy is trying to separate all of us out there from each other and from them. So they're trying to come out and have you identify with a certain group, place, thing, political, whatever. And then within that group and within that identity, they can manipulate you. It's all about manipulation. So if you identify as what you think is a good thing, you have to make sure it's really a good thing. And when I delve into politics, the biggest things that they are separating people with is race, of course, and various sexual exploits. And then now we have the drug component is now found in taking or not taking certain medicines, or you have the idea of a certain politics or political party, a certain ideology is good and the other one is bad. And so you're following blindly with this. A lot of people listen to this particular, me talking. I mean, they're not that in those groups so blatantly, but we all have a touch of it. That's why I like to deal with these things. It's easy to point out the log in others' eyes while missing the beam in ours, or the speck in others' eyes by missing the log in ours. And with that log in our eye, it's going to mess up our view. So we must remove our log so we can address the speck in others, or dealing with things in the world. And that's what, a lot of my life is a self-evaluation. I look for reality, and I find it in the lack of contradiction, and I find that it always ends to a higher, better good, rather than looking at a short-term gain or loss. And then once you get further out in that view of it, you can start to see the subtle details of, God's fingerprint or footprint, or at least the guidepost. One of my things is I don't think God interferes in space-time a lot, because he doesn't have to. He invented the whole thing and set it in motion. And even though we have, quote, our own choices that we can make, or free will, semi-free will we have, it's still in a predictable fashion from the viewpoint of that perspective, that higher perspective. I think God also sometimes will interfere in it for us or for the people involved. Not that it's going to hurt the outcome. It's going to work out. And that's where it's kind of interesting, because no matter what happens, it's going to work out. No matter how bad it is, it'll eventually be wonderful. And the badness may lead to the wonderfulness. So no matter how it happens, it's not. That's where the phrase is. You just have to choose, because if you choose the wrong way, eventually you will learn. It'll be very long and painful. And God exhorts us to choose the right ways. But back to identity. If you identify in a race that this particular race has been put upon, let me stop for a minute. If you go back through all of time, and this is where reality and truth comes in, all human beings of all races and all kinds have been manipulated and abused. Everything from slavery to sex, farms, or whatever. Through all of time. I've been listening to a book. It's called there's three of them. History of from prehistory on, then medieval history, and then now I'm getting into Renaissance. And one of the things I find in there is all people are abusing all people. So, even within one's own ethnic group, I'm looking at the wars, the fights that have been happening within Christianity. We'll take it to Christianity, and then we'll take it to European Christianity. And in that group where they're all the same color, there may be ethnic minuteness in difference between being in different families. It's funny when you're stepping out of an area, like it's the Scots and the Irish are enemies and all that. But if you step out far enough, it's very similar. And when you step out even farther, like all English speaking are similar, and so on. You have these groups that come out. So the fighting, when it gets down to it, these people were fighting and killing each other because of the nature of Christ. Was it Was it two natures, God and man? Were they intertwined? Were they the same but two different facets? And the whole problem was whether there was two or one. And then you want to throw in the a Trinity in there. So you have a Trinity, no Trinity. I mean, they were killing each other. Wars were fought, deaths were done, kings were killed, slaves were taken. Arms were cut off, hands were cut off, so they couldn't fight anymore against them, of the same group of, quote, Christians. So it's not the ideology that's doing it. It's the people in it that ideology being used by the power brokers. And ultimately, this is where Satan comes in. Whether the devil or interdimensional beings or demons, it doesn't matter what you call them. They're evil entities who are influencing subtly and using the identity which you identify with as a means to separate us from both God and each other. Because when you have two Christian entities killing each other because of the trying to decide what the nature of Christ is, isn't that crazy? And that was a real, honest to good thing. So, it's not like, okay, we're all fine now, so we don't have that problem, so let's just go back. We got it all together. No, it's the same throughout all of time. It's always been the power-hungry people, the ones who want power. Some of them start out with money and their family and affluency. Some start from scratch, and they brutally make things work and all that, but it's all about power. And a lot of these people, these are Holy Roman Empire and Christian nations where you have the king killing his siblings so they don't contend the throne. This is like ridiculousness. This is beyond ridiculousness, but it's true. And so it's what we have to focus on our identity. Now, if you identify as a Christian, and it's those Muslims or atheists or, the atheist communists that are doing it, now you're going to miss those who are in Christianity, who identify Christians, who are also doing problems. And this kind of goes back to last week's show a little bit. I noticed it wasn't really received as well as others, and I think that what we have is it's convenient to blame others for all the troubles. I mean, it happens all the time. When you have a marriage, when you have a divorce, how often do you hear like, well, actually it's both our faults and all that? Yeah, you'll hear it, but usually it's all the other one's fault. And there are stuff there. There are things at fault, but the point being is that it ends up being the point of view or the identity pollution that happens. And so when you get into right now we see what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, and so the identifying with Ukraine. I see the flags everywhere. While we support Ukraine and all that, and I'm not even talking about supporting Ukraine or not. What I'm talking about is that we have created this pole, and if it's drawing people to support Ukraine and repelling them from supporting or tolerating even Russia. Now, it's not because of what Russia did or what Ukraine did or didn't do or what have you. It's because they want a war with Russia, and this is the way they do it, breaking all their prior agreements, saying they'd never go past, go into Ukraine. That was the deal for all this perestroika stuff and all that. Breaking all those things, but they're going in there. And so they have to have popular support, so they're going to bring it up, just like, unfortunately, dealing again with the Christian marching to go to, what was that called? See, here we're getting I'm seeing the pictures of them marching down to Jerusalem. This is one. I'm glad I don't have to speak for a living. I just forget. I just can't see the word. It's not there. I mean, I can see them all. Crusaders. There you go. See, if I don't think about it, it comes. I see a picture, it doesn't come. The Crusades. A lot of it was terrible, taking over lands, killing people, all in the name of Christ. The Pope giving forgiveness of sins if you go on this crusade and all this. It's it's it was very real at the time and very emotional at the time, and people were killing people at the time. So I'm not making fun of them. I'm not saying how dumb they were. They're inside their identities at the time. And they were identifying with being a Christian and identifying with the Muslims being the enemy of Christianity and Christ, and they were going to do something about it. It's not even about whether they were enemies. In fact, they were all enemies of each other because they're all killing people. I mean, how do you talk about Jesus and go out killing people? So, but the thing I want to say is that we're doing it today. We're being shepherded into Ukraine because we want that. They want to have a war with Russia, and they want support for it. Anybody who doesn't support it is ridiculed. You can't have a differing opinion now. You are ridiculed for having a different view. You were censored. It gets thrown off social media and whatnot. And if you do go to social media like Gab, where you can actually put whatever legal speech you can, then the whole thing is demonized. I'll talk to people about Gab and go, oh, there's a lot of anti-Semite stuff there. There's a lot of anti-Semites and stuff everywhere. And what you do is you just block what you don't want to see. Anyway, I digress. So the identity. So if you identify yourself with a black and the black oppression, which really and actually happened in this country, that's going to taint your view against either whites or any kind of you're gonna vote for a black politician because he'll understand you, and they're just using you as well. It's not about color. It's not about anything. It's about political power, psychopathic power, evil power, manipulating people. So, if someone says to me, are you a Christian? Well, the short answer is yes. But the problem with saying that is, what does the Christian mean to them? Because they're giving me a label based on what they understand the label is. So if you were going, excuse me, if you were assuming that when I said I was a Christian, I was either Protestant or Catholic, or that I was a Baptist or a Lutheran, or if you're making assumptions, that doesn't describe me at all. I follow the teachings of Christ. I do as best I can when I can learn how to do and what he says and recommends. And I rely on both his teachings in what we have saved, as well as the spiritual guidance behind the scenes with the helper as he sent and his own whatever. That's what I depend on. You can't. Every church, I found everything wrong with every church. Now, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm on a path, and I've learned and fine-tuned things over the years. I've reversed things over the years. I've gotten to a point now where it's enough. It's enough consistency that tuning here and there comes in, and that's for me. I'm not saying I found the answer. Listen to me what I'm saying. I'm saying you have to find the answer, but you have to use the non-contradiction. You have to follow the truth. Anything that contradicts, any oddball, any spurious data as you do it, that is the most important thing to look at, because that kind of data will change. It will fine-tune the change and find things that you wouldn't have saw before if you just blocked it off. So this whole identity politics is destroying us. You have, I don't think they can make Trump, more villainous than they've tried. They have him. They're trying to try him on things that no one's been tried on, and they're trying to put together that he'll be in prison the rest of his life. Why? Because he did wrong things? No, it's because they don't want him to upset their narrative, which is false. I got my own personal wishes of how he would do things differently, but in a battle, in a wartime battle thing for finding truth and stopping tyranny, you're not going to find a better candidate to do that. It's messy, but he's not opposed to that. And then hopefully working with people and cleaning up the mess afterwards, so to speak. But it's amazing. And so I was talking to a friend of mine who was a longtime Democrat. He's a Democrat, I think, of tradition. He identifies with a Democrat/liberal. He identifies with it. He's a real smart guy. But when I mentioned something to him that I was interested in Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., talking to a lifelong Democrat, I'm now looking at a Democrat candidate as having a lot of good points. He laughed and goes, "Oh, he's crazy." He's crazy? The guy is very insane, very articulate, has miles of backup what he talks about, has won millions in cases for his clients. It's like, how do you just say he's crazy? Well, that's what the programming is. That's the identity politics. If you don't agree with us, then you're crazy. If you don't agree with us, then you're racist. Wait, I'm black. How can I be a racist? You're the black face of racism. If you don't agree with us, you're a misogynist. Wait, I'm a regular guy. I got other. If you don't agree with us, if you're a woman, you don't agree with us. Well, then you're you're a misogynist. Like, I'm a woman. And I think about this. If you don't, this is the point. This is the identity that we're looking at. So if you ever say to yourself, "Well, that guy's crazy," is he crazy? The word crazy has meaning. It means there is a mental deficiency that causes problems. Is that true? Or is that just some name that you're throwing out? You're doing the same thing they are done. Excuse me. I don't think they're crazy. I mean, I think that they're just power-hungry evil. They want power. And to get power, everything is good. There's nothing being left out for there. So if you do something you lie or cheat or steal or do something evil for the perceived good that you're doing, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what's happening now. They're doing all these various things, and they're trying to get it so that if you don't agree with them, you're crazy. So this is the idea of identifying. And what I would like to identify with, when you say, well, what do you identify with? I identify with reality. I accept reality regardless of what it is. And I do have principles that I use to guide along the acceptance of reality, which is non-contradiction. And because of my belief in God and his creation of the universe and the idea that God knows best, that the creation works out for the best at the end, it's going to work out. So I identify myself with everything that happens, whether it's allowed to happen, forced to happen, however you want to phrase it. There's a silver lining. I'm not saying it's not painful. I'm not saying it's problematic. And some of the people who were the strongest in faith had dealt with the most terrible demise. And my prayer is not feeling all that powerful in that aspect, that for God, I'm leaving it up to God. Because whatever happens, he'll be there at that time. And that means in the good times, too, because if you do something that's good and you have a reward, that's where the devil still comes in. Excuse me, I want to cough in here. So what I try to identify with is the principles that Jesus taught. I identify with Jesus, I guess, but I identify with his principles, and I identify with God. That's how I identify with. And so when I go out, I don't identify with a church or a particular doctrine. So if somebody is a post-trib rapture and some's a pre-trib rapture, to me those things are interesting, and at the moment they happen or don't happen, it will be significant. However, it's irrelevant if you don't have the bigger picture of what it is to be sons of God and the heading for the kingdom of heaven, because that is that's the identity and the goal. Then you look at again the Matthew Beatitudes, and that whole Sermon on the Mount. That is what matters. So I remember a guy coming up talking to me, a long-time listener. He needed to tell me that he was gay, and I think he was looking for my accepting him as a gay Christian. And my answer was not, I don't think what he expected. It's got nothing to do with any of this. What the point is if you identify with being gay, that means you identify with certain sexual preferences. That's your identity. I said, what I identify with is being a son of God, and I identify with those principles. So you're not going to identify with sex. You're not going to identify with wealth. You're not going to identify with race. You're not going to identify with gender or sexual whatever. That's not your identity. Your identity is, I'm a child of God. God created the world, the universe, and we're his creation. A tree and us are his creation. We have the highest conscious potential, thus means we can be the hand of God can reach through us with more potential than a tree. A tree can do good things and could help, right? But a human can do much more and can do much more evil. So it's a matter of humanity having the consciousness and the mobility that the humanity has a greater responsibility in the creation. And it can be, the humans can destroy the earth. Trees can't. Dogs can't. Cows can't, whatever. Wolves, fish, whales, they can't. We can destroy the earth, or we can help the earth. And we can help the people in the earth, and we can help those creatures who are lesser consciousness and less mobile and less with it. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what I identify with. That's what we need to identify. And if we identified with that, there'd be no war. There'd be no suffering. There'd be none of this. And this is the fulcrum that you have to go on. Now, if you turn to that and I say, I'm going to follow the principles of God, Jesus, I'm going to identify with them. And I'm going to try to be Jesus with skin on, or God with skin on, reaching into space-time through me, his spirit through me to do stuff for things in this life, for people, helping animals, helping anything. If you do that, you will have a successful life. You won't hate. You won't be doing things that are wrong. You won't be doing harmful things. It doesn't mean you won't get harm. One of the fine print that I didn't read on the agreement when you come to Earth is, it's dangerous. You're going to die. First off, you're going to die, and there's a lot of things that happen along the way. So it's just the way it is. It's one of the things of being in a space-time continuum. When you're into more spiritually based things, it's different. Hold on for 1 second here. Having a little nasal moment there. So it's what you identify with will open your eyes. It will guide your steps. It won't hinder you. And by identifying with earthly things, you're going to have a less fruitful focus. You got to focus up, not down. I love that Bible verse. You can't serve God and mammon. And when they translate it, they just put the word mammon in there because there's a rich meaning with the word, and it's more to it than history has allowed us. So any way to translate it into English or any other language is going to diminish from its use. So I'm happy to use that kind of thing. And what mammon is to me is focusing on material. So the gods of the material world are mammon. The material itself is mammon, not gold, but what do you do with gold and how you think about it? They say money is the root of all evil. It's not true. The love of money is the root of all evil. Just like it says that when you take you ate the apple of the tree of knowledge, that was the fall of man. That's not true. It was the apple of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It wasn't the apple, the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's the thing, not knowledge, the knowledge of good and evil. So now we're learning an experiential, deep knowledge of what's good and what's evil and why. So, this is how a lot of stuff has been quoted. I had a Facebook post I was looking at where people were saying, Jesus doesn't condemn. When the harlot came to him, the prostitution came to him, Jesus said, neither I condemn you all, also you're. So Jesus was not judgmental. Then they don't quote the next line, which is, neither do I judge you. Now go and sin no more. And of course I quote that part, and then there's silence, But this is the problem, is when you focus your view of Christianity based on, let's say, a more progressive, liberal, sexual aspect, you're going to learn from it, but you're also going to have, you're actually going to quote things out wrong. And it's actually going to justify your doing wrongness. And we all do it. So it's just not me saying, those people over there. No, we all do it. All do it all the time. It's just, if you keep looking at it, you'll get better at finding it and and do it less. You'll get better at not doing it. And this is why I like Socrates. His quote, one of the biggest folly of humanity is knowing what we don't know, saying we know things that we don't. And my tagline on my email is from Socrates is, the unexamined life is not worth living, because it's false if it's not examined. It's a false life. You want to be real and have it together, because when we move on to the next line, the next thing, that'll be real. And I'm not talking about being, whether you go to punishment, heaven or hell. I'm talking about at that time, all your phoniness that you have and all that misjudgment, all that stays behind, like in your body. Your personality and who you are goes. But a lot of the things that used to harm you is in the human, the flesh part of the body, and it's left behind you. So now, you think it was okay to do all these things, and you're on the other side. It's like, whoa, oh my gosh! So now you're going to have to be dealing with your own personal problems. It's not even that God has to throw you into a lake of fire. That's a metaphor for another day to talk. But when you're going to go there, you're going to be ultimately upset. So this is why you want to get yourself ready. You want to be, if you identify with a Christian, you want to be what a Christian really is, and that's the following of Christ and the obedience he had to the principles of God. That's what you identify with, not what color you are. And you'll notice that the color means nothing to them. The people of power will throw you under the bus regardless of your color. And in those who are lying, cheating, and stealing for them, after they win, and it's all sealed up, and you can look at Mao and Stalin for examples, real life examples. Once they got in power, they just killed all their people. They killed the people who helped them, because they don't want to have traitors around. They kill them. So the people who are doing evil and helping for that, thinking they're going to get a crumb, you're going to get stepped on. And of course, the same goes with those who are looking for Satan in the dark side when they go cross over. So this is the point I wanted to get at, is being what you identify with. Change that. If someone says to you, who are you? What are you? And you say, I'm a welder. You may be a welder, but that's not you. You are welding, just like you are shopping or whatever, but you are that person who is created by God through the system that he created, being born and so forth, conceived and birth, and being raised by God in there. Embrace that, identify with that, and follow those principles regardless of what it appears to cost you up front. Because another Bible verse, whatever anybody loses in defending of the kingdom of heaven, defending it, will be given many times more. And it's not even why you do it, but it's a nice, little comfort that you're never going to, well, if I do that, if I live the holy life, I'll miss out on this. First off, if you can't do it, if you're living a holy life and your identity is properly founded, you're not missing anything, because it's only going to be harmful to you, or you're going to gain more internal and spiritual, I don't know what the word is, breath. You're going to be more conscious of it in there. And so there's no loss on it. All right, so this is what I'm saying. Who you identify with will poison your ability to find truth until it can be fine-tuned. And then if you choose the right, to identify with the right stuff, now it becomes an asset to you. So if someone says to you, like, oh, you identify with Jesus' teachings and Jesus, well, I want you to not identify with him, or I'll do this harm to you. Well, but I can't change that identity. It's true. Well, then harm comes to you. Well, it's a badge of courage. It might not come to you. You know what I'm saying? You can't look at what will happen over there. You have to look at what's happening here, and all will be compensated. I'm looking at the time. I got to go, but I wanted to stop and say this. I've been thinking about this during the week. Talking with Kelvin, who's a listener, a fellow truck driver. He calls me. We were talking about stuff, and I was going through this. I said, yeah, I think I want to talk about this. So shout out there to Kelvin. And if you want, my email, feettothefireradio@protonmail.com. And if you want to talk about something, I mean, I drive for a living, right? So I got time. We could talk on the phone. I've talked to several people now, and it's kind of good. It helps. It's good for me, good for you. And if you have questions you want me to look into with my logic or my spiritual identity or whatever, please email me. Please ask me, because I love when someone asks a question. It like sets me on fire. And if someone wants to ask questions, that means they want an answer. And I'm here to serve in that aspect. I'll bring up stuff that I think should come out here, but I feel more comfortable answering questions rather than deciding what to talk about. Personally, so for what that's worth. All right, I'm going to roll here. It was good talking with you, and hang in there. I'm still working on doing on the studio. Notice there's no buzz today. Everything's working out, so that's good. I got some teardowns to do, getting ready to fire up the Linux. I've been working on the new versions and all that, so lots going on behind the scenes here, and I'm really actually kind of excited. A lot of work to do, a lot of physical work to do and redoing all this stuff, but I'm having some fun doing it. All right, so that brings, God bless you, take care, and we'll see you again. The ancient one, mild friend, the one who walked before, the one who will walk again. May tomorrow be the day. God bless you all.
Retell your timeless truths. Oh, ancient one. Feet to Fire is a production of IPS Media Works on the OnSync Radio network of stations.